"Hey, we're Blenderstyle." And as we slam in sideways through the door, sleek but not sober, something inside us opened unfinished. We pulled the sheet back from your unconscious form. We shed the liquor from our clear bottle. We get what we came for. We achieve purchase. We take the matches from our pocket and we light one. We count to 10 and we let the matches fall. Because today we're talking about Paw and their debut album, Dragline, released in 1993 on A&M Records. Cheers, fellers.
Cheers.
Cheers, dude.
I'm a hard pig. So in 1995 or 6, not sure which one.
Yeah.
We bought a video game console called the 3DO, and the first game we got for it was Road Rash. And on Road Rash, there was a compilation of albums that has influenced every musical purchase I've come across since then. And one of the standouts of that was Lawrence, Kansas's very own Paw. This shaped everything I loved about music when I was a kid, and I wanted to bring it to you guys and see what you thought about it.
I remember this being like one of the seminal Casey albums. There's a handful of albums that I just know that you love, and Paw Dragline is one of them. And we've been listening to it the whole time.
Yep.
Road Rash had a surprisingly good amount of good music.
It had a very good soundtrack.
Monster Magnet, Soundgarden,
Therapy, Swerve Driver,
a bunch of other ones. And we just like kind of picked some music off of this, and Paw was one that really stuck for you.
Paw was one of those albums we ordered from the what was
BMG.
BMG or a Columbia House.
One of those mail-in order things, yeah.
And we got it. We were like, greatest thing ever.
Nathan, when did you get introduced to Paw?
So Casey showed me Paw, and like I'm sure when he showed it to me, he like sang along to every word to it and stuff. And I was intrigued, you know. I mean, if somebody's going to learn every word on a whole album, I it's worth looking into, right? And the music was good to me. It caught my ear. And I bought their second record. I came across it in a record store. Bought it. And it was pretty good. I liked it. But the songs that you showed me off this were better. And
yeah.
I'd listened to it this album a couple times, but this is the first time I listened to it like numerous times, and I'm really glad you like picked it. Like, This is like a really good record to me.
They get lumped into jazz. They get lumped into grunge often.
They do.
And we were talking about this outside, and you think that's not a correct categorization?
I feel like that's a disservice to this band because I feel like. So there's an article, I don't remember what magazine it's in, but there's an article called Searching for Nirvana 2. You could Google it, and I'm sure it'll come up. But what happened was after the Nirvana hype happened and all these grunge bands like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and stuff made it big, these A&R reps started scouting because now Seattle was overexposed. And they started scouting the nation for the next big band. Helmet was one of the bands that that was discovered out of this. And Paw was Midwestern America. And they got clumped into this grunge era because of the time they were discovered. But I don't ever feel like Paw was ever a grunge band. I feel like it was a disservice to them to call them grunge and lump them in because to me, they were better than any grunge band at the time.
This sounds like you just have a beef with grunge. I understand how some people can. I understand how people can, say grunge with this, but I agree with you 100%. Grunge is like a Seattle sound.
It is,
and this does not sound.
It has like
Seattle.
A Midwestern Southern
for sure
twang to it.
Yes, 100%.
And the way the vocal delivery.
I mean, they use a steel guitar in fucking Jessie.
Yeah. The songs are longer. Well, I mean, there was longer.
Yeah.
But,
and lyrically very different, too.
Every song on this album was told from a first-person perspective of loss or longing. It was poetry. And that's what I loved about this album from the get-go. It's like Mark has a way with the way he speaks and the way his vocal deliveries work that was the biggest turn on to Paw for me, was the way that the raw emotion that he felt even when he's just talking about losing a dog or a fish that he was helping somebody reel in, or
He writes because he has to.
yeah,
He writes about everything
personal
that is
experience. And it's great. And not saying necessarily that these are all personal experiences, but that feeling, it's there, and he portrays it very well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Isn't he a professor or something?
He taught, he completed a doctorate at the University of Kansas and taught there for a while, from what I understand. I don't know how long or if he's still there or not. He also did a book, Cue the Bedlam, more desperate with air, or more desperate with longing than the want of air, which I think is the coolest title of any book I've ever heard.
So you ordered this and it's poetry, right?
I searched for that book for years. I actually emailed the press.
Nathan's going to borrow this from you.
I actually have 2 copies because I found one and then immediately won another one on eBay. I emailed and somehow got in contact directly with Mark back in like 2001 or 2002. And he was like, yeah, I'll send you the link or whatever. But I was poor. I had no way to pay online and I couldn't do it. And so I never did it. But he was the coolest guy ever, at least in the email, if it really was him or whatever. But he was like, yeah, I'll sign it and I'll send it to you or whatever.
It's kind of cool.
And I never got it. I didn't have a way to pay online at the time. But so when I found this, and even though I paid like $50 for it, totally worth it to me.
When I was doing research on this guy, I found like he was doing poetry.
He does. He's a professed poetry nerd.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He did a little like, I guess you could call like a live show with a bunch, like a poetry slam almost, in Lawrence, Kansas at one point. There's some YouTube videos of it. I forget what it's called. But more importantly than that is it as a band in whole, the way that Mark's vocal delivery and his vocal style and his storytelling, and then Grant and Peter Finch's drum and bass, or drum and guitar, it's just this really cool transition from highs to lows, and it does a great job of, even in the music itself, telling a story.
Yeah, and so in this, though, I got to bring up, though, is grunge, the heaviness, the quietness. And I also want to say that's just the time in that era. The
New metal was doing that.
Well, the Pixies were like that as well. Very calm, very, and then they would get loud.
Yeah.
It was diverse. It was dynamic.
It's a good way to have a contrast on your music.
The distortion pedal was being used more and stuff.
People love that thing.
But I have to comment also on the vocal delivery. Like, he'll put words also in places that, like, I would never put a word within that song.
I noticed that too.
I mean? And
it kind of makes it stick out more.
I love that about it. Because he did that.
Just another boy.
Still have a hard time singing along to this, even though I really want to. Like, listening to it on my own. Just because I feel like it's just so personal. I don't know, man. It's just weird. I can't, I don't know how to explain it.
There's this weird perspective. So, yeah, so like you're saying, so I snuck in your bedroom, steal some change for booze, and
That's
all I found were love notes from another boy. And it doesn't go.
I love that part.
But it goes. So I think I mentioned this. I don't know if we have that episode live because it might have been season 0, but on Snot, Lynn Straight's vocal delivery was always very convoluted and weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool,
Mark
though.
Hennessy does the same thing with Paw, but as I've grown into like listening to Paw, I feel like it's perfectly on time. They're almost like little haikus that he sends with the music, and it's weird the way he delivers these things. His voice, his transitions from like this gargly. I read an interview where, or a review where somebody said like it's like he's gargling glass, and it's perfect. This dude's voice is amazing, but then he transitions perfectly to like these cleaner, almost melodic.
It's weird that
styles.
he's like such a good like writer of lyrics, but also like a pretty good singer.
He is.
He has like 2 modes.
Exactly, yes.
Right, shouty and like a more cleaner. And I think they both sound great.
Well, and there's this excess of emotion that's portrayed. I think Nathan touched on where like these emotions are like thrown out there and left, and there's no wanting to pull them back or take back. They're thrown out there and left for the world, and they're out there.
Like,
it's just really cool feeling.
Do you mean like in the sense of like own interpretation?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is poetry, right?
Oh, for sure.
I'm glad you're relating it to poetry, because I think that literally is what it is in a lot of points.
It for sure is. It's musical poetry.
Because some of it, like some of the lyrics at face value seem kind of creepy and stalkerish and like.
What are you talking about? He fantasizes about Veronica.
Yeah, dude, from Archie comics, right? It's so weird. And then I have to be honest, when
the violent femmes were very weird.
When he's like,
and stuff too.
I'll spank your perfect ass over and over again.
Yeah.
I get the sense it's not like some girl he lost, but some girl he's like fantasizing from a distance.
100%. That's all it is.
That it's kind of creepy.
He's fantasizing about Veronica. How many times have you read like a book or a magazine or a Playboy and fantasized about the girl in the picture?
I never.
Masturbation.
I never a lot. But this is the thing. He throws it out there, and he takes that internal thought that you have.
Green Day Longview. Yeah,
and throws it out there.
It's very masturbatory.
It is.
But that's the thing. He takes that internal struggle and puts it out in voice, and that's what makes it so crazy, because it's unapologetic.
It's what every boy kind of feels.
It is. It's exactly
it's
that.
It's kind of like, are you giving our secrets away right now?
He's not afraid to just throw it out there and put it for what it is.
I appreciate what you guys are saying, for sure.
I don't think this would fly nowadays with the political correctness of this.
I don't know.
I think this would be fine.
I think this is fine. Also, real quick, because we've been really, the lyrics are great. The vocals are great. This band kicks ass.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, dude, the fucking guitar, some of the parts get like pretty heavy riffs and stuff.
The riff on Jessie's sick, dude.
Dude, the guitar work on this is amazing. That transition from like this heavy, grindy, like beefy feeling to this really clean, like almost still guitar sound on a lot of stuff. And I think I touched about it in one of our earlier episodes, how there's this really cool transition that Grant, their guitar, I think it's Grant. Yeah, Grant does, where he does a seamless transition from like this really tight, like internal struggle with the grindy stuff to this open melodic feel where you're letting this emotion go. And it matches the vocals perfectly. And the fact that he's able to do it so seamlessly is amazing on this whole album.
It's like you took Pantera and then took the metal out and kind of boiled it down to like a more of a rock, like.
Well, Pantera did a great job of that on Cemetery Gates.
But that was still metallic, you know what I mean? This is like not so metal.
That clean.
But it has the same chug.
Yeah.
And like it's.
That transition is what makes it cool.
And I do like that there's like darker and lighter parts, like almost contrasting at points.
Yeah. It's that internal struggle versus that external like expression. And I feel like this album does a great job of portraying it. The album was named after George Kennedy's character in Cool Hand Luke, because at the time Grant Finch and his dad had a hard time communicating with each other, and the Cool Hand Luke was a movie that they watched numerous times together.
What we got here is failure.
Well, that's the thing. On the song Dragline, like a lot of that song is based off that that character and the inability to communicate. It's about a boy's struggle with his father in communication and how they. It starts off with. I'm mad, or I'm drunk, he's mad, I pushed a fight, he says, let's go, I said, all right.
Good lyrics.
It's that internal struggle, but thrown out there for the world to feel and see.
Yeah, like I see it and feel it it hits me.
And I know, I figured that would hit you for sure.
So like,
and you're a poetry fan, Nathan, like personally, like you read poetry and stuff like that. Does that is that a factor here for you with Pa?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I'm also like a big, I like Morrissey. I like Nick Cave. I like Mark Lanigan, which are all artists that I would relate this guy to and hold up to.
Mhm.
It's crazy, like this band didn't like come out with a lot of music, and that's what this makes this album to me so special, is that it is literally this snippet
of time
in this band, and all doing different things now. I really enjoy. I just got to name some of my favorite songs though, real quick. Jessie, Couldn't Know, Pansy, One More Bottle, and Hard Pig is gonna be forever my jam.
Yeah.
And then also like I wrote on here texture. This album, there's texture to it. There's, like you said, like the guitars being heavy and real tight, and then just opening it up, and that ride and that snare, and then him just doing his vocals over it and stuff. It's very textural and emotional. So I'm really glad you picked this, because this is grown to be one of my favorite albums now. I will always go back to this. And so I give this a 4.9, man. I think this is a really, really good record.
Hell yeah.
This is one of those like major Casey albums. There's a handful of them.
There are.
Monster Magnet, White Zombie. Some of the ones that really like stick out to me.
Orbs.
And this one has like a lot of nostalgia with it. And I was looking forward to going into it. But it was kind of a little disappointing, I'll be honest. I give it a 3.8 out of 5.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't think it's that like impressive. You were talking about like it's like layered, or there's like lots going on. I don't think I feel that. I feel it feels a little bit flat to me. But the emotion, like it makes me feel.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I don't know why I'm feeling it. Like I'm listening to the lyrics and I'm just like, that's weird. And I'm just like, why am I crying all of a sudden? You know what I mean? It has that kind of like tug on me, so I cannot deny it. I think if I sit with this longer.
Did you actually go online and read the lyrics and stuff?
I read the lyrics on like a couple of the songs. Okay. I didn't like go through and read them. I'm not a big poetry guy. I'm not a big lyrics guy. You all know this.
Yeah.
I dig that the fans of this band are fans of this band.
Oh, for sure.
The comments, like the one video I saw where he was doing poetry on YouTube.
Yeah,
the comments were like, "Oh, this guy was my fucking teacher. He was the best," or whatever. Or like, "Pause the greatest grunge band of all time."
Okay, so this is what's also cool about this band, is that it's a hidden gem, kind of.
It really is, yeah.
And like, that's like, dude, go listen to Paul. Don't let it be a hidden gem anymore. Like, tell your mom, tell your grandma about this album. Tell everyone about this album.
So I don't mean to dunk on it. I think 3.8 out of 5. It's good. It's not. I think it's too smart for me.
I think this is something that will eventually grow on you.
It does, and every album you get into that I don't like initially, I like 10 years later.
Yeah,
consistently that happens. Casey, Pa, Dragline.
This, when I was a kid, quickly became one of my favorite albums, and then going back to it, it still kind of stands. I don't consider myself a poetry nerd at all, but I feel like I understand the poetry that's in this, and there's a lot of life experiences that are portrayed in this that really are relevant to my life, and I think that really helps it out. But at the same time, I feel like the vocal dubs on this get a little muddy at times, and if I wasn't really critiquing it, I would probably give it a 5. But being as we're really kind of deep diving onto this stuff, I would say that really changes like absolutely fucking nothing. This is a 5.0. This is the best band to never make it mainstream. I feel like the fact that they were lumped in with the grunge era was a total disservice to them, and had the record company stuck with them.
So you think it may be because of that blanket term that got lost
I honestly think
in it, you mean?
I think there were so many bands at that era in the early 90s that got grouped with that grunge era that weren't necessarily grunge, but they got grouped into that, and they got hindered. Just like there was a shit ton of bands in the early 2000s that grouped as new metal that weren't necessarily new metal.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I feel like grunge was a great transitional period for the musical industry, but at the same time, I think it was a very, very, very big catalyst to the downfall of the musical industry, because so many bands got grouped with that, because everybody in the industry at the time was so quick to get the next band instead of looking for what was right in front of them, that they chased these other bands that weren't necessarily the biggest things. And I think Paw was one of those bands that just like was close enough to being grunge adjacent to be grouped into that, but not grouped enough into their own style. And I think had A&M, which at the time was really big for jazz and all that stuff, this was kind of a venture out for them to go with this kind of harder kind of music. And for them to take a risk on this and then decide that, oh, the grunge era is already over, let's just bail out of this. Paul put out 3 albums. They put out this, Death to Traitors, which was decent, and Home is a Strange Place. Which,
How is Home is a Strange Place?
That's actually a fairly decent
like that
album.
one.
It's
Is
an
it
EP.
better than,
I think it's better than Death to Traitors. But
Death the Trader's kind of cheesy.
But I feel like Death to Traitors was the record label almost pushing this band to be like,
It does feel like that.
so I feel like when Dragline came out, grunge was such a big thing that
Dude,
record
that
labels
album
were
art.
willing. Like if you listen to
It's
any
good.
of the albums that came out in the early '90s that were grunge, the bands had free reign to do what they want, because the record labels wanted this Nirvana sound. And so I feel like Paw was lumped into that grunge scene, and their first album, the record label was like, we need that grunge sound, do whatever you need to do. And then by the time their second album came out, the record label was back to doing record labels doing like, hey, we need a hit. And so a lot of the music's on Death to Traitors, although it's a more cohesive album, I feel like it's more poorly written. It loses that emotion and that feel and that rawness. And then by the time Home is a Strange Place came out, they were kind of already out, and they were just like, let's just throw something out there. And it was a great album, or a great EP, but I feel like this is Paw's pinnacle of where they were going to be, and this is a 5.0 and one of the greatest albums to come out of the early 90s. We're Blenderstyle. That was Paw, Dragline. Check us out on other social media, Instagram, Facebook. Do we have Twitter?
No, fuck Twitter.
Don't check us out on Twitter, because fuck Twitter.
Fuck TikTok too.
Fuck TikTok too. Yeah, nobody wants that shit. We're not for.
And if we get a TikTok from a year now and you're watching this later and you write some snarky comment,
We love TikTok.
we'll pin it and like it. Rest in peace, Mike Reeves.